My title of my message today is I Worry That I Worry Too Much. And I don't know about you, but worry is one of those things that I have always been extremely good at. And I wish I wasn't. But I find I can easily find myself worrying. And if you're like me, you've probably woke up in the middle of the night and suddenly thought, did I pay that bill? Did I remember to shut the door? And the next thing you know, 2 hours have gone by, and you've gone from, did I pay that bill, to, did I put the bill in the envelope? Did I put a stamp on the envelope? Did I mail it? And then, does my car need an oil change? Before long, it's morning, and you've spent the whole night worrying. That's if you're like me. And unfortunately, I know too many people who tell me that, yeah, that's me. Because it is easy to worry. It's easy to be anxious and to wonder, did I take care of that? You know, life is busy and it's hard. And there's a lot of things that we are responsible for. And occasionally we can let those responsibilities overwhelm us. And not surprising, Jesus had a couple things to say about that. And one of the ones that we're going to read today is Matthew 6:25 through 34. And he said, "Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, about what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow nor reap, nor gather in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valued than they? And which of you, being anxious, can add a single hour to the span of his life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field and how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of those. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which is today alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O little faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you." And this is my favorite verse. I had this written on my toolbox when I worked at Lennox. Verse 34, "Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble." And you know, if you think about it, you don't have to worry about tomorrow because you got enough to worry about today. And that can also be a point where you just literally have to realize that as we go through life, trouble is part of that. We want to be, as Christians, to be a life that is trouble-free. I never have a flat tire. I'm never late. I never have a problem. It just always goes smooth and silk. And to be honest with you, I've never known anyone's life that actually works that way. And I will tell you that even though I have lived a life full of worry, I can honestly say that 90% of what I've worried about never happened, never existed, never became to be. And when I look back and think how ludicrous it was for me to spend hours and hours and days fretting about something that never happened, it's really kind of hard to say, that's a smart way to live. In fact, it is difficult. But if you're a worrier, you not only worry about what's going on today, you worry about what you did yesterday, or what you didn't do yesterday, what you should have done yesterday, or you worry about tomorrow. And that's where Jesus' words are so eloquent. You can't change yesterday. You're not going to know what tomorrow brings. So worry about what you have to deal with today. Stop fretting over yesterday, stop fretting over tomorrow, and just live today as it is today. And you know what? When you worry about tomorrow, you're not even guaranteed you will be here tomorrow. Oh no. there's another thing to worry about. So here we are. The problem with worry is it causes us to focus on control. The people who worry the most, and I raise my hand, are people who like to be in control. They like everything the way they want it. And the more out of control they feel, the more they worry. And that's a bad sign for a Christian, because to be honest with you, the Christian does not get called to be in control of their lives. In fact, the Christian is called to lose control. He is to surrender his life to Jesus Christ. And worry is the number one sign of a failure to trust God. Now suddenly I don't like my way I worry. And I worry, like I said in my title, I think I worry too much. Because it's not healthy. It's not good. And if I'm not trusting God, then there's a problem there. And I think it's one of those things that to sit down and say, I need to trust God more, and so I will worry less, is one of those things that's like, yeah, that's easier said than done. However, it is true. Psalm 94, 17 through 19 says, if the Lord had not been my help, my soul would have soon lived in the land of the silence. When I thought my foot slips, your steadfast love, O Lord, help me up. And when the cares of my heart are many, your consolations cheer my soul. I have to realize that the more I worry, it's an indication of how much I do not trust God. And as a Christian, I always talk about Sunday school answers. You ask a person a question in life out here in the streets, and they'll give you a different answer. But if you come to church and say, are you supposed to trust God? There's a Sunday school answer. Well, yes, of course, you trust God. Because that's what you say when you're in Sunday school or church. The problem is, I don't always see that answer as clearly on the street as I do in Sunday school. And so we have to be careful with our Sunday school answers. Should I trust God? Absolutely. But do I trust God? Well, now there's a problem. And my worrying will tell you how much I do or I don't trust. Jesus warns us in Matthew that you can't add a single minute to your day by worrying. And the funny part is, doctors will tell you that while you cannot add a single minute to your day, you can certainly start shaving them off. Worry and stress actually causes things like heart attacks, strokes, coronary disease. It causes immune suppression, your immunity. It causes short-term memory loss. Maybe that's my problem. Now I got another thing to worry about. Worry will cause you all sorts of physical ailments, and I have literally seen people die from the anxiety created by worry. So worry is bad. We all agree on that. That's no problem. But how do I stop it? How do I take and stop being a worry person? What do I do at 3 in the morning when I wake up wondering, did I pay that bill or not? Is my car due for an oil change? Whatever it is at 3 in the morning that you wake up doing and thinking, how do I disconnect that? Well, I'm going to give you good news and bad news. The good news is it can be overcome. The bad news is it takes you being willing to trust God, and it takes time. I will tell you that now being a Christian, some 56, I have to look at the years. I get lost on how many years I've been a Christian. And like I said, I have been a professional worrier most of my life. The more times that I have found myself worrying myself to a frazzle over what will or won't happen, what I did do, what I should do, what I can't do, what will I need to do tomorrow, all these things that I have to worry about. The times that I have finally come to peace were the times where I finally got to a point where there was no other option but to trust God. And you've all been there. You know, that time where, yeah, I'm worried, but there's nothing I can do. I'm helpless. This is out of my control. It's completely not in my hands to change the outcome here. This is something that someone else is going to decide. When I get to that point and I put it in God's hands and I do finally trust him and I find out later he took care of it. He got me through it. It took me through that hard times. Then I learn what it is to trust God. And you would think after a couple instances like that, I'd get really good and say, well, yeah, it didn't pay to worry about that, but I did. And then I fretted and I argued with God, and then finally I trusted God, and he took care of it. And then you'd think, well, okay, that's something you'd learn. But the truth of it is, it's a lifelong process. Because trusting God is something that you develop and you grow into. It's not something you just go, aha, that's what I need. I need an iron tablet. Oh, I'll just start taking iron tablets. No, that doesn't work that way. Trusting God is a lifelong experience of saying, I will stop worrying and I will start trusting God. Paul says it in Philippians very well, chapter 4, verses 4 through 9. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything, but in everything, in prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Finally, brothers, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there's anything worthy of praise, think about these things. What you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice in these things, and the God of peace will be with you. Now, if there was ever a man who had good reason to worry, it was Paul. The man has been shipwrecked 3 times, stoned, I can't remember how many times. He has been attacked. He's had people put out contracts on him, and they are literally wanting his life. This is a man who, rightfully so, has some things to worry about. And yet he writes things like, do not be anxious about anything. How do you get to a point where you're not anxious about anything? Well, Paul gives us a slight hint. How much do I focus on the good things of God? You know, I find it easier to not worry about something that I've seen God take care of in my life before. I find it when I've gone through an experience and I've been forced to trust God, that when I face that same circumstance again, it's easier. Because I can go, you know, I've been through something like this, just about like this, and God took care of that. I guess I can trust him this time. Your attitude, your willingness to trust God will discern how much you worry. Now, if you focus on the exact opposite, you will spend your entire life worrying about what can and will go wrong. You'll worry, what can I mess up now? And those things will just cause you to in a cycle of total worry. Now, I will tell you this, there is no one immune from worry. Worry is a part of your human nature. It is not something that God designed to be doing the way we do it. Worry was intent to say, there's a situation, let's deal with that. And it was a motivator. But from the fall of sin in the garden, Satan has corrupted worry to be something where he can say, look, you cannot trust God. You cannot believe that God will handle this. Worry has become a way for Satan to separate us from God. When I ask myself, can I really truly trust God? Can I really put a situation in and say, this is in your hands, Lord? I'm not going to worry. It's not easy. And we're all prone to not doing that. because of our sinful nature. But I will tell you this, like every other practice in the world, the more you do it, the easier it becomes. The more you experience the trust of God and see His grace through life situations, the more willing you will be to trust God. I can tell you, there are so many times in my life where I have gone to trusting God only because it was no other option. There were times in my life where, this is it, Lord, I got no other options. I've shared with you about my father putting a gun to my head and cocking the hammer. In that very moment, I remember praying, Lord, here I come. There was nothing I could do. Nothing I could change. Nothing that I had to worry about, because what was totally out of my hands was very much in the hands of God. When you experience that, you learn a trust. I wish I could say I learned it well at that age, because I didn't. In fact, I'm still learning that same lesson. But it is a point where when you say, okay, Lord, help, that you start to learn what it is to trust. And you'll notice something else. When you place that trust in God, that thing called worry starts to become smaller. I know now so much more peace than I knew 30, 40, 50 years ago, because I've learned to trust God. And to be honest with you, that has not always been an easy journey. And to be honest with you, there have been so many times where I could have trusted God and worried less, but I spent too much time fretting and worrying. And I would tell you that it's one of those things where if I look back over my life, I have to be somewhat embarrassed. For God to have proven Himself so many times to me, and me not to trust God more than I do, speaks volumes about my understanding of God. And it's not a pleasant speaking volumes. It's telling me, Rick, God has proven to you that you can trust Him, and yet you still don't trust Him. There is, in fact, a distinct correlation between worrying and failure to trust God. It comes from that very first moment when Adam and Eve were confronted by Satan and said, "Did God not say?" He was putting in doubt. Can you trust God? Can you believe God? Do you really want to be in a position where God has all control? And Adam and Eve, thinking about it very briefly, decided that perhaps maybe that wasn't the best option. And they brought sin into the earth and the world. And you and I worry because we do not trust God. We fail to put things in God's hands. And I'm here to tell you that worry is a self-feeding habit. The more you worry, the more you will worry. The more you decide you can't think about it, and I go back to that illustration of the middle of the night. The nights I wake up thinking about something, and I go through my mind and I go, well, did I pay that bill? Yeah, okay, I think I did pay that bill. But did I put the bill in the envelope? Did I put a stamp on the envelope? The next thing you know, your mind has gone through 500 other things to worry about. And that's because your mind woke up geared to not trust God. What would have changed if in the middle of the night when I woke up and go, did I pay that bill? I go, well, Lord, let's worry about that tomorrow. Let's go back to sleep. That's your problem tonight. I would have taken all the steam out of worry that there was. But instead, too often what I will do is spend an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours sometimes fretting and worrying. And it amazes me that when I get done worrying, and usually if I fall asleep again, it's through exhaustion of worrying, that when I wake up the next day and I think about what I was worried about last night, I go, what was that all about? Why in the world was I worried about that? What consequence could that have possibly had? And yet, at 3 in the morning, it overwhelmed me. The truth of the matter is, friends, our failure to trust God creates worry. If I cannot trust God, I cannot be free from worry. But the more I do trust God, the more I can feel freedom from worry. We're going into tax season. Some of you are already probably starting your taxes. Now, I don't know how many of you have a 5-year-old that prepares your taxes for you, but imagine that. You find a 5-year-old that says, here's my IRS forms, fill that out for me and mail it, would you please? No one's going to do that, and if you did, you would definitely stress about it, because that 5-year-old is not capable. I would suggest to you that the way the tax code is written, a lot of us adults aren't capable of deciphering what that is actually done. We would have good reason not to trust a 5-year-old to do our taxes. And that would be worrisome. And yet, I take that same attitude about the God of the universe. The person who put every star into place. And I love going out in the night sky and looking at those stars and realize they're all held in place and put in place by God. Each of them has a name. Each of them has a solar system around it. Each of them is designed perfectly by the God of the universe. And if he can do that, and I'm worried about him handling a little situation in my life, seriously, I'm the 5-year-old trying to do taxes. I'm the one who's looking at things and going, Lord, I don't know if you can handle this. And God's going, you have no clue. You have no idea what I can and can't do. I will tell you this. It is, in fact, a trust issue. And we will always, as fallen human beings, struggle with worry, struggle with trust. God never anticipated nor he desired for us to shoulder all that we try to shoulder. We oftentimes find ourselves fretting and worrying over things you cannot control. There are health concerns that the doctors shrug their shoulders and go, we don't know. We don't have a clue. And then we worry about that as if we can somehow change that outcome. God says, put it in my hands. We were never meant to tackle many of the issues that we tend to worry about. We are not designed to worry. But it is a sign. If I catch myself worrying, when I find myself fretting over this issue, it's a good indication that maybe I need to ask myself, how much do I trust God today? And you know, the beautiful thing about God is the fact that we are not good human beings, that we flawed and we're failed, is that the moment you recognize that, you can come to God. I can't tell you how many times I go, Lord, it has become obvious to me I don't trust you because I'm worrying myself sick over a situation. Okay, Lord, here it is. Help me. When I get to that point, I recognize the problem and I hand it to God, the one who can take it. You know and I know that worrying is not good for us. It will shorten your life. It will destroy your health. It will rob your peace and keep you from being happy. But it is also a direct result of our fallen nature. We must as Christians, learn to trust God. And yes, that is a slow and ongoing process. And even at my age, I am needing to learn to trust God more than I do. And I'm here to tell you, some days it's easier than it's other days it's not so easy. There's no one in the world that will advocate worrying as a good thing. There's no one in the world that will say, you need to worry more. It would make you a better person. As I said, God placed it in our hearts to be concerned about things that need to be done, to remind us that do things. And if in fact there is something that I need to be aware of, I need to be aware and deal with it, but I certainly do not need to worry over it. And I certainly was never designed by God to be overwhelmed by worry. Satan will use worry at every opportunity to keep you from trusting God more. But if you want to worry less, trusting God more is exactly what you need to do. Because I'm here to tell you, you cannot trust God and worry at the same time. You will either see the worry for what it is, or you will release it to God and say, God, this is out of my hands. Your will be done. And at that point, there is a peace. There is an assurance. And worry disappears. Thank you.